Welcome, world. Hello, Asaf. Hello, my friend, my great friend over there in Israel. Hello, brother. Hello, Chris.
Hello. Hello,
Chris, you still
everybody.
in Texas?
Tomorrow coming back.
Okay, so Chris will soon be back in the Middle East, in Texas, enjoying America, the water parks, and all the great things in Texas. We are here at the Great Transition, where we are looking at the world, what's going on in the world through the lens of the wisdom of Kabbalah. There is so much going on. I noticed, you know what I noticed, Asaf? That sometimes we
Mm.
get really excited in the moment by what's going on, but some of these cycles, for example, the world's not going to erupt in volcanoes and earthquakes tomorrow. Sometimes we make it sound like we're doomsayers, like everything's going to
Mm,
happen like tomorrow.
well, first of all, you
No.
don't know that. You don't know that.
As I was
I mean,
saying it, I was like, what if it actually does happen tomorrow? No. But
n- no one
the
thought COVID would erupt, the day before. So,
Yeah, it's so difficult to live every day as if tomorrow,
yes, I
is
agree.
the big day.
Nor
So
should we. Nor should we. But okay, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
okay. So with that being said,
ahead.
we are in a very tenuous situation. We don't want to let up on the pressure. We need to be able to be calm and have confidence in what's happening, but we don't want to let up on the pressure. And the purpose that we point out the current events, even though we want to speak to you about this, is just an excuse to bring the wisdom of Kabbalah into um, a colloquial discussion and just a normal conversation to talk about these spiritual things in a normal
Seth, are
conversation.
you are you revealing the hidden
The secret
goals
behind the
behind our
agenda of the program?
show?
No, we're taking the current events and kind of like putting it as clothes on top of the wisdom in order to figure out how to speak about the wisdom in a way that it's obvious.
Mm,
Okay, so we want to keep the pressure on because there is a lot going on, and it turns out everything is up to us, not just me and you, to all of us, to all humans. This is in our hands now. Um, so there's about two-thirds there's about 350 million people in the United States. Almost 200 million of them are right now facing dangerously high heat waves on the West Coast. I know, except for America, we use Fahrenheit here, so we're talking about like temperatures over 100, 110 Fahrenheit, which is
hmm
maybe in the middle of Las Vegas. It's not unusual, but places like Seattle, most people don't have mazgan. I think that's what you call it, air conditioning.
Yeah,
Most
right.
places in Seattle, it's kind of like it's respectable to not have air conditioning.
hmm
But these we're talking about like 38 Celsius, approaching like 40 Celsius for
Okay.
for
Okay.
more than 50% of the population, or maybe a little less than, say 36 or something. That's still very hot, right? 36.
Right. Well, 36 Celsius, it's not it's hot. It's
We're talking
hot
about like,
to it's hot to the point that it's inconvenient to be outside
yeah,
without
that's what we're
some
talking
kind of air
about.
conditioning, but it's not going to kill you, you
Right.
know.
Okay. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's still pretty not comfortable,
Yeah, it's
um,
uncomfortable.
which which causes a lot of problems in places like California. That the water there is an issue
hmm
because when it gets very hot, water evaporates. So you have these rivers, for example, where they take that,
hmm
the runoff from the mountains, where they would take this water to power, to feed, to drink, to it's not to
hmm
feed, whatever it is, to drink the people of California, to give water to all those people, and these rivers are drying out.
Mm.
That's what's happening a lot on the west with the
hmm
what do we got here? Take a look at some of the lakes in California that have been swallowed up by the mega drought. Okay, so this is a lake, but there's no water in it. That's the dock
Yeah, I
that's
don't know
Right.
if
getting
you can
water.
tell. Yeah, it's a dock. Yeah, exactly. There's supposed to be boats here.
Okay, but
But
instead it's the bottom
wow.
of
But
the.
wait, this is something that happened now? This is what you're showing me?
This
Like
is
why?
this is from last. This is this week in California.
But it so like
Chris, show us some more gory
last year there
pictures.
was water there? That's what you're saying?
That's it, Chris. There's a bunch of before and afters. Maybe you'll come across them somewhere
hmm
of rivers. Oh, there you go. Okay, look on
Here
the
we go. I got
left.
this Dan Clark. Yeah, look at this. So that's the
Okay.
before. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And
And
that's pretty dramatic.
yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Change
That's what we're
there.
talking about, right?
Wow.
So,
This is
so
this is
what
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, what we want from this, everyone, is to feel pressure in order, because if we don't feel any pressure, we don't move.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose isn't to just, go nuts from all this, but the purpose is to feel pressure only in order that we move. That's why we have the physical world. Otherwise, we
Right.
would just be white light. So that's why we're
Mm-hmm.
going through this. We're not going through this, for scare tactics or things like that. So
Yeah.
what happens on the West Coast is there's a problem with drinking water. There's going to be a huge
Mm-hmm.
issue. And I'm just talking about the United States. I'm more familiar with it. I'm sure it's going on everywhere. On the East Coast, we have other issues. It's very humid and it causes all kinds of storms, hurricanes, thunderstorms, knocking
Mm-hmm.
down trees everywhere. High winds leads to all other issues. We also, in addition to the heat, of course, there's flooding. We've talked about it a few times,
Right.
flooding all over the world, flooding in Turkey, in Africa, in India, in Europe. We
Yeah.
saw Germany,
And also, these
Austria.
things are connected. I mean, I know that, for instance, here with the climate that we have here, uh, the um, the sea temperatures are rising. So, like the temperature of the water, if you go to take a swim in the beach, like so,
Hmm.
it's hotter, which kind of feels a little nicer. But in terms of the climate,
Remember?
this is a
Remember, we talked a few
what?
times about and I still don't even remember the name of it, the Gulf Stream. It's not called that. There's how all of the water travels around the Earth, right? What happens
Yeah,
is, and this is like the third time we've talked about it, but it's hotter around the equator. It's cooler at the poles. So what it does is it draws the cold water from both sides, from both poles towards the equator, and it circulates the water. That's a
yeah.
certain current. It moves at a certain kilometers per hour. It moves at a certain speed, and with it, it brings weather patterns, it brings seasons, and all these kind of
Yeah,
things.
no, what I wanted to
So,
say about the temperatures of the sea is that it has to do with this is what I don't know exactly how the mechanism works. Earth scientists will explain this in detail, but basically because the temperatures of the sea are rising, just the temperatures, not the sea levels, right?
mhm.
So the hot air that goes up at the end of the day, at the end of a chain of a chain reaction of effects, that is what can produce, mass floods. That's what can bring like very difficult storms to deal with.
So this
So,
also is also when you're not having the temperature disparity, you're not getting that flow, which leads to
mhm,
you're not getting the same flow of the ocean because it was
right.
it was moving based on hot and cold. So now as it's becoming more temperate, so many things that we're in the middle, in the process of going on here.
Okay, so what are we
Um,
doing with all of this, man?
hold on, hold on.
Where are we
I just want
going?
to lay, just want to
This is
lay it all out. I just want to
okay.
lay it all out. We know about the fires that have been happening everywhere, right? Greece has
Mm-hmm.
been on fire. Also, again, California's been on fire. Fires everywhere. The place. My grandparents came from Russia. My great grandparents came from Russia. There
Mm.
was like these stories that people were sent to Siberia. I grew
Wait
up
a
thinking
second. Your great grandparents came from Russia?
all my people are from Russia and the Ukraine, yeah, and Belarus, yeah. So
Really?
anyway, another story.
Okay.
That was okay. So,
No,
but Siberia,
I thought only half of them. Some okay, whatever. Yeah, Siberia.
Siberia,
Mm-hmm.
um, the wildfires in Siberia now, the size of the fires in Siberia, a place that's like historically ice, cold,
Sure,
snow,
sure.
are the size of the wildfires in Siberia is bigger than all of the other fires going on in the world combined.
Yeah, that's the first of all,
Okay.
the size of Russia is, is insane. It's so big. When you think about fires in Siberia, which is it's just huge, vast spaces. Wow. That's just
Yeah.
nature's
Okay.
full
So,
wrath on display. Yeah.
all right. So, now food production. After the United States and after China, food waste if all of the food that's wasted was a country, food waste is the third biggest emitter of greenhouse gases after the United States and China. 1 third of all of the food that's intended to be eaten by humans goes to
Mm-hmm.
waste. Um, that's
Say it
also a
again.
huge
Say it
consumer.
again. What?
One third
One
of
third. Okay.
food
Mm-hmm.
produced for humans goes to waste. So there's a tremendous amount of water, just a tremendous amount of greenhouse gas. I mean, of carbon
Mm-hmm.
emissions,
Yeah, that is just
and
for no reason, basically.
for no
For
reason,
no good
right?
reason. Yeah.
There's hundreds of millions of tons of plastic waste. Over the last few decades, we've seen a decrease in the populations of mammals, fish, the salmon are actually cooking now. You don't have to cook them at home. They're
Yeah, I
cooking
saw an article
themselves
about that.
in the
That's
hot water. So so
that's
there
also very weird. Very weird. Yeah.
yeah. So here's the thing. Spiritual work doesn't take a lot of time. It takes a lot of attention in our hearts,
Yes.
qualitative, right? So
Yeah.
what we want to do is take all of this pressure, all of these things, and compress it into our spiritual action. We don't have a few hundred years to solve this. A few hundred years, there's, you know, there's who knows if this
Scientists are saying today
ecosystem.
that in 20, 30 years, you're looking at a planet that in many places is going to be too hot for people to tolerate. 20, 30 years. And
So what?
that's,
Yeah,
you know, anyway. Yeah. So we don't
you
have
know,
time. No, we
in
don't.
the it's interesting. I was in New York. Today is Thursday. I was in New York. Yes, Tuesday. I was in New York on Tuesday, and it was very hot. But I noticed that people in the Middle East, probably not Tel Aviv, but people in generally maybe the more Arab countries, when it's really hot out,
Mm-hmm.
they cover themselves with more stuff. People in New
Mm-hmm.
York, when it gets really hot out, they take more stuff off.
Right.
It's so interesting. I was like thinking about it. You walk down the street. We have
Right.
a lot of people actually in Queens, which is a part of New York,
Right.
that come from. I don't know where they come from actually, but they wear burqas and everything. Like you can see, like full covering in New
Mm-hmm.
York City. Um, burqa, the hijab is just the head. I'm sorry, I don't know. The hijab
Yeah,
is the head. The burqa is the
hijab's on the head. Yeah.
and the burqa is the whole
The
body,
head
right?
cover.
So
Yes.
it's really really hot, and you see one way that a certain culture deals with it is covering.
Well,
You
yeah.
you
I always
see
think about, the Hasidic Jews in terms of when it's so
there
hot,
you go.
and then, it's a
But
very
that's
hot outfit. Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah.
They're following like a Polish custom that they brought to the Middle East. I'm talking
Right.
about people who are kind of living there in the desert,
Mm-hmm.
and their
Yeah.
custom was to cover themselves from the
Mm-hmm.
sun.
Mm-hmm.
And in New York, the custom is to um,
Right.
remove,
Well,
the hotter.
there's a technical aspect to it, and there's a cultural aspect to it. I mean, if you cover
What do you
yourself
mean?
more, I mean, technically, if you cover yourself more when it's hot, then you protect the skin, but you feel hotter, So if you want
Yeah.
to feel quickly more convenient, then take off some clothes. But then you might get skin cancer. So it's a give or take, basically. But isn't it interesting that as human beings we have this uh, preoccupation with clothing and clothes and fashion and and cultural
Hold on.
ramifications of what
Let
you
me tangent.
wear and all
Let me
that.
tangent you
I
for
mean,
one
animals
second.
don't wear clothes. Yeah, go ahead. Tangent
Just,
away.
just because you brought up fashion, and I just was laying out all of the terrible things that are going on here. There's also an issue I saw
Oh, more
this
terrible
week.
things. Go. We
Yeah, one
we
more
we
terrible thing before we get into your
Sure, sure.
interesting story about
We
clothes.
we we weren't, it wasn't enough all of the first 15 minutes, so we need
So
some more.
yeah, so hang on. It's all building up to
No,
something,
I'm
but
kidding. Go ahead.
there's an issue with the fashion industry that like you can go to the shopping mall and you can buy really inexpensive clothes, and they change every season. Literally every season there's new styles, new fashions, and it
Sure.
turns out that um, so much of this, and then when you're done, either it goes in the garbage, or you drop it in one of those baskets somewhere, you donate it somewhere, and they hopefully give it to someone who needs it.
Right.
It turns out that there's like millions of, there's actually a mountain in some country. Chris, I sent you something if you have it. There's like a mountain of clothes in some country somewhere where these are shipped. There's such a problem with dead white man's clothes. Okay. Fashion addiction. All right, so there we go. There's a mountain of in Ghana. There we go.
Okay, I haven't seen this. I
Okay, so there
mhm.
is all of these clothes, all of this waste, just more waste, basically.
This is a
More
mountain of
waste.
clothes, right?
It's
But
a mountain of,
wait, you're saying that this is where companies really put away the clothes that they say they're recycling? That's what you're saying?
I think this is consumer waste, but it may
Hmm.
be stuff they can't sell. Um, it doesn't
No,
actually look
stuff that
so,
they say they're recycling.
okay, stuff they
The
say there's,
article said something about how a lot of the clothes that are donated make it to Ghana, and later on you'll see how there's like, yeah, here it is, this market, and so now they're trying to resell them, but they say most of it's just garbage, like it's, you can't even wear it, so it just ends up in a pile. Later on they say that the monsoons that come wash it all down river and pollute the
Hmm.
rivers and clog up the ancient sewer systems that they have. It just causes a bunch of problems.
Okay, so wait. So
okay,
basically, a lot of those charity kind of clothes, right, that are basically just polluting the environment. That's
correct,
okay.
correct.
That's okay. So that's
So,
so that doesn't even work, right? That whole let's try to donate the clothes thing at least doesn't work as
right,
well. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
right. No, that's it. You had mentioned the fashion industry, and I just wanted to point out that that's another one we can add to the list. Last week we added the solar industry to the list. Like, okay, let's try and do something good and make solar panels. It turns
Yeah.
out they're being made with in coal operated factories. And here it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna, change my wardrobe every season. I'm just gonna recycle these clothes or give them to the needy. And it turns out it's causing mountains of waste.
So
On the
is
other,
the
yeah.
solution to global warming as simple as wearing less clothes? That is basically the the question that we're after, yeah?
Listen, nature gives an animal, no animals, they just wear what they
They
were given on their
exactly.
birthday.
They don't wear clothes. Maybe that's where nature is pushing us. Maybe that's the whole thing. I mean, what's the whole preoccupation that we have with clothing and clothes and like, what am I wearing today? Do I like this kind of style of shirts? Do I wear something else? Do I need to? Maybe this global warming thing is just to help us be more naked. Is that what it's about? What do you say?
What do I say? Is that nature's plan? I don't know.
Uh,
Bringing us back towards our natural state. Maybe
mm,
there would be less. I mean, I guess after a certain amount of time of everybody acclimating themselves to their body parts being exposed to everyone,
mm,
um, I mean, I
hmm.
guess it would be hard to be. Well, a lot of things would need to change actually if we walked around naked all
Yeah.
day.
Well, there are. Here's the thing with clothing. I mean, there's a lot of aspects that are interesting about it, but you know, first of all, it's true that in some cultures, um, people wear less clothes, and so in some African tribes, for instance, you'd see the women going around shirtless. No one even looks at it in a sexual way. No one looks at it in a problematic way. It's not perceived that way. That's just the cultural kind of norm. And in another place in the world, that becomes like a way to demonstrate or a way to protest something that is completely, just normal and the norm in those in an African tribe. So when you juxtapose this, you clearly see that clothing has to do with culture, and yet all human beings, doesn't matter where they evolved in the in those the last 200,000 years that we exist as a monkey plus as a Homo sapiens, right? We Doesn't matter if it's more or less clothes. we still develop clothing. It has to do with who we are as human beings. And of course, it has to do with our need to cover ourselves, our need
Which
to,
need is that?
well, on the very simple corporeal, physical, simple level, we feel shame. Like you said, an animal walks around naked. There's no
What are we
problem.
hiding?
What are we hiding? That's a good question. I mean, think about it. We're all the same. We're all animals, right? We all have this animalistic body. What is there to be ashamed about here? Why is there's this? Where do these clothings come from? Where's the idea of clothing comes from? Um, and
Before you go into any
yeah,
business, you have to think to yourself,
yeah.
um, what am I going to sell to somebody? What am I going to get from them?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, Before I go into any endeavor, it's like, what am I gonna get out of this situation? That's why we basically do everything. I guess if we just lived like an animal and just woke up in the morning and just ate something, made baby animals, and slept and played, just ran around and swam and stuff like that, so then it wouldn't be a big deal. But if we're gonna build this whole society, each interaction is basically like, what am I going to get from you? And I don't
Okay.
actually always want you to know that I'm taking something from you. I want you to think I'm nice, and I
Right.
don't
So
want you.
so so the need to cover something about ourselves is
That there
intertwined
we
with
go.
human activity. We always
Hmm.
need to cover something, right? So where does it come from? So
Right. You meet somebody at a you're going to start a business, right?
yeah.
And you meet somebody who either is going to be a great customer or a mentor, right? So
Yeah.
you're talking to them and you're being really nice to them. And inside, you're thinking to yourself, how can
Mm-hmm.
I learn what I need to learn from them? How can I
Yeah.
extract what I
Yeah.
need to extract from them? So you
And
do all these niceties.
and everyone even knows it. You know what I mean? That's the funny thing. I think the more the closer we are in our development to the 21st century, if you look at human beings, the more we've developed these interactions, business transactions, and diplomacy, between us. Uh, you know, if you go back thousands of years ago, our communication was simpler as well. So the more we evolved, the more we developed, our relationships became more complex, intricate, sophisticated, and multifaceted. So people today in a business meeting, they know that everyone is wearing a clothing for a certain interest that they need to promote. They wear both an external attire that has to do with where they are and the culture and the setting and the set and setting that they're in, to the point where it has to do with like the kind of jacket and the kind of tie and so on. But there's also a clothing over my interests. So, in order for you and I to engage in mutually beneficial transaction, or any interaction, business transaction is just a really good example. We always need to come ready with some sort of clothing, right? So, like, I don't know, like people go on a date, right? Same thing. There's a business transaction happening there too. There's some sort of an interaction where, and there's a constant game of what each side is hiding something and revealing something. And then according to what you reveal to me and what I conceal from you, you make a move in revealing and concealing, and we're trying to not immediately, spill the beans and uncover, expose all our cards. keeping our cards close to the chest. I don't know if I want to show that I'm like this. I don't want to show maybe that I like you so much. I am going to conceal this part of me because I see that she or he doesn't like that. There's this constant inner chatter about what kind of garment, what kind of clothing we put over our personality and our behavior. And and beyond that, it's also very conscious. That's what's so amazing about human beings and this issue of clothing. We are aware that everyone is wearing a clothing. Everyone's hiding something. Everyone's covering something and deciding what we want to reveal. Look at social media. Look at how obvious it is there, right? You put your best picture, on your profile. You show specific moments in specific events that happen to you in order to portray a certain portfolio of your life. And best if you do it with certain filters that make it just a tiny, even a little notch kind of better. So all of that is our clothing. It's not just the clothes that we wear on our body. And this whole engagement with clothing ourselves towards each other comes from a deep spiritual root that we manifest in this world towards each other, but it comes from the deepest spiritual root there is, from the moment of our creation, from the first state where the created
Hold on. When you
being
say the
became
moment of our
conscious.
creation,
Okay,
which moment is
I
that?
almost
No, no, no,
went
no, keep
away
going, keep going, keep going.
from
No, no,
away
keep
from
going.
this world. So you're bringing me back.
No, no, I want
I'll
you to.
stay
I
here.
want to
I'll
go
stay
with
here.
you. I just want.
Okay.
I want everyone to be together. So when you say from the moment of our create, yeah. Don't let me stop you.
No.
Just when you say from the moment of our creation, what moment is that?
So the created being had to be created in 4 phases. And in the first 3 phases, no clothing is needed. That's why in our world, the
You mean so
first
we're starting with
Mhm.
just Ein Sof, infinite light, whatever that is,
Right.
right?
Let's just
You're saying for outside of, so from out of there are these phases coming out until we get to the created being, and you're saying the first 3 that emerge from that don't have any clothing. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
and that's why, and that
Okay.
manifests in our world as the still vegetative and animate levels of nature that have no clothes on them, right? Now, the human level is a qualitatively different level of the created being. It's a conscious level that can already identify and sense the force that created it, the giving force, the life force, the force that is behind all of nature. That's what the 4th level of the created being, the most evolved level of the created being, can sense. And because it can sense that, there's and the moment that happens, we're actually talking about, we're calling it moments, but we're talking about a process that happens before time exists. But in that line of code, in that state of development of creation, when it reaches a sense of the governing force of creation, the governing force of life, the governing force of nature, when the created being senses that there's a relationship with that force, and that the other 3 levels don't feel that. When the 4th level, which is ultimately us, when the creation feels that, then immediately the need for clothing emerges, because
That's that
yeah,
Adam. That's that moment in the Garden of Eden where
that's
they
that
eat from the
moment.
tree of.
Yeah, the sin of the tree of knowledge, all of that. Of course, these are symbolic allegories.
Allegorical, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that have spiritual roots. They're actually it's a language that describes forces and qualities that precede the material world, that govern the material world, that are at the root of creation. So Kabbalists don't have words to describe them, so they one of the ways they use is this language of legend. So we think it's talking about this world, but it's really just talking about this spiritual physics that's happening, and and that's where our need for clothing comes from, and the engagement, the preoccupation that we have with clothing is so deeply embedded in us that we don't even notice. We're always calculating and designing a clothing over ourselves every moment. You can't, and that's what we also get that from the media, from what we see from Hollywood, from everything we see in others is through this concept of clothing. We never actually see the others. We only see their
Mm.
clothing. And we learn from
Wow.
that what kind of clothing we should show as well, right? Um, and that's something that is very, it's intertwined with our human identity. This need for clothing, um, the the I don't want to. Okay, I will. I'll just throw some Kabbalistic terminology here. The ultimate clothing that the created being needs to create. The whole reason we were put uh, uh, in this world, and from here we are beginning to develop back into that until we climb back up to that state of singularity with the governing force of reality, of singularity with each other, when we become again included in the oneness of creation. The All the way from now to then, all the way back up, is this process by which we gradually design more and more elevated clothing on our desires. So we start from, so human beings, they come off the trees 200,000 years ago, let's say, in a picturesque kind of way. They come, think about it, 200,000 years ago, we're all naked, we're on the trees. I'm skipping some, historical accuracy here, of course. But we go off the trees, and then we suddenly, the fourth level of development begins to emerge in us. It begins to manifest in this world. And then these creatures who are on the trees just having a ball, woohoo, just like we're good, we're part of nature, everything's great. All of a sudden they go like, hmm, I should probably wear something, you know? And then they begin from that very physical concept of clothing, they begin to wear a clothing over their personality, language, and what are nationalities and flags, and of course fashion
Talk
and
to
all
me.
that.
Talk to me about the spiritual root of
It's
this.
right, right, right. So right, the spiritual goal of this is that gradually we are developing uh, the kind of spiritual clothing that will enable us to be in a relationship with what we call in Kabbalah the light, that force of ultimate, unconditional, complete bestowal that governs all of nature. We can only be in connection with it if we manage to wear the right clothing upon us.
So,
And it's called this
that's,
this is called developing reflected light in order to attain the direct light that
okay,
comes.
so I still have no
Yeah.
idea what you. That sounds very, very obscure. But we can answer a simple
Okay.
question. I just was
Right.
looking in the chats for a second. Maybe I broke eye contact with you, and that's why you lost explaining to me with the right clothing. Um, David
Yeah.
Mancini wanted to know if we're going to have a KABU retreat for all of the KABU students
Yes, Kabu
in
retreat Kabu
October.
coming up soon, October
Yeah, in
1st through the
October.
3rd,
Yeah,
right?
right. So David Mancini said he hopes that the KABU retreat is clothing optional. And I would say that probably all of your instructors don't care what you wear or if you were naked. However, it would be too difficult for us to focus on what we're there for 3 days. Maybe if you gave us a few years to acclimate to all being naked together, and then we could, study correctly. But since we're going to be there for 3 days, it would be totally disruptive because of our culture and the way we were raised. And
Hmm.
really, what matters is not someone's butt walking around in the woods or in the street. What matters is the direction of the heart. And because
Yes.
of our in all of these natural instincts and things in us, it's too difficult to aim the heart when you're staring at a lot of butts. It's just too hard. We have too many animal things going on in us. So anyway, the retreat will be
Yeah, it's
um,
just a matter of
clothed.
reality. In order to do spiritual work with each other uh, naked, it doesn't matter who you are, what's your sexual orientation, where you're from. If you take a person right now from our current culture and you take a group of people and you tell them do spiritual work together, what that means, that's another whole, story. But now you tell them take your clothes off and now do spiritual work, you're just putting an obstacle in front of
Many
them,
obstacles, many
so
obstacles. All of a sudden, there's going to
there's
be
just
all
no
kinds of
no point.
attractions and
Yeah.
repulsions and all different things happening. Yeah, you wouldn't be able
And
to.
so much confusion and yeah.
Okay, so
So
let's get back to spiritual clothing, as you were saying. You were saying something about
yeah.
reflected light or something. What the heck are you
Oh boy,
talking
I
about?
think maybe we went too far off the ground with that.
I'm interested.
The I think we were talking about how the created being essentially is a quality opposite to the quality of nature's governing force, which is nature's force is a force of bestowal, complete bestowal, unconditional bestowal. We have no concept, we can't even conceive of what that means. Any idea of giving that or love that we have comes from our experience in this world, which is an experience that is governed by an intention to receive. So we can't think of what it actually means to be relieved of self interest, to be free from thinking about or being in any kind of concern, any thought about self. We don't know this kind of existence, but that's the existence that in Kabbalah we call it the light or nature's governing force. Bala Sulam says nature and God are synonymous. You can call it God if you want. It's the same thing. That is the kind of existence of the spiritual quality. And so, um, in order for us to be in contact with that, we have to wear a clothing over our desire to receive, which is what we're made of, which is completely opposite because we are creations. We are the created being. We're completely opposite to that force of giving. So if we want to be in connection with this force of giving in some way, we can't be in contact with its direct light, with its direct giving, because that opposite our direct receiving nature is just we're just burn. We just burn. We can't. Uh, um, you know, it's. I don't want to confuse anyone because this requires
This is
some
this is
some
actually
prior
this is
knowledge. But okay, go ahead. Yeah, you'll guide
yeah.
the
This
exploration
is
here.
this is really important what you're saying, because there's this, again, we're talking about this big light and it's pressing on us, and we need to clothe that light into this world. And there's this right, at any
Yes.
point, help me out here. So this light is coming and we're clothing it into this world. Now even though humans have something like 50,000 thoughts a day or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
um, normally our day is broken up into, like, I wake up, check the phone, get my coffee, eat my breakfast, take a shower, go to, that, like, just blop. Then my next blop,
Yeah.
it's like go to work, blop.
Right.
Then my next work, like, blop, come home and do the things I do at home. And there, life is made into these very big, like, as you call them, broad strokes. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
can break your day up into like a couple really broad strokes. A few things happen.
Right. I had a few projects, had a fight with my wife. I got to take my kid to soccer, whatever,
Right.
yeah.
So there's the
This is
morning, the
the
teeth, the
things,
shower.
the stuff that I do. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we know, though, that the Kabbalist is going through, they say, like, hundreds of discernments in like a minute.
Or even a
So it's
second.
like,
Yeah.
or even a second.
Mm-hmm.
So we are looking, so that big light is needs to clothe here. And we are so we're like very much like an animal in that sense. Like, what does he do during his day? He gets up, he eats, maybe
Mm-hmm.
procreates, he rests, he goes to bed, and these very big blocks during the day,
Yeah.
right? And most of our life is also like these big blocks during the day, but to
Well,
clothe
it seems like that.
seems like it,
It seems
to
like
in our
that. Yeah.
consciousness,
Yeah. If your
to
consciousness is limited, then you're focused mostly on what you can measure with just your immediate five senses. You rely on that to tell you what happened.
So if you say,
But
okay,
yeah, okay.
so if you say to a surgeon, if you say to a lay person and a surgeon,
Yeah.
oh yeah, so we did like a heart surgery. You say that's like a regular lay person, right? It's a big block. He's like, okay, you took the guy,
Yeah.
put him on the bed, someone broke him open,
Right.
someone went in,
Right.
did something, closed him back up.
Yeah.
If you talk to a surgeon about it,
Yeah.
if you talk
Yeah.
to a surgeon about it, he's got, hundreds of thousands of hours of
Yes.
studying in the books, and
Yes.
he knows exactly what it feels like and the sound when the knife
Right.
punctures the
Right.
chest, and when you crack open the ribs, he knows all the sounds
I
and
got a
where
good
it goes.
story about this. I'll tell it shortly. I'll tell it shortly. In
Okay.
the when I was in the IDF, Israeli Defense Force,
Army.
the
Yeah.
army basically. Yeah, you have to do it as an Israeli citizen. So I was in the as I served as a medic instructor. Um, um, anyway, I'll just shorten the whole thing. So we were at some point, I had to do an internship in operation rooms in hospitals. So it was like about 2 weeks where every day I would go to a different operation or several operations a day, and just pretty much like an open free cinema kind of thing where you can just go to whatever movie you want to go. So that was like my internship, right? So this is like, I don't know, 20 years ago. So anyway, the so I saw a bunch of different operations, like from things that have to do with blood vessels to the bypass kind of thing that they do with the heart, to things with the stomach and limbs, all sorts of things. There's a lot of discernments I can go into, but the one thing that I remember very clearly in regards to that is that I was thinking, man, doctors are actually like plumbers. They're just plumbers, man. They're just like, take this pipeline doesn't work so well. We got to just move it, cut it, connect it here. I remember you start seeing it like that, and you're like, wow, this is just like putting my car into the car shop. Now, obviously, from a superficial perspective, that's exactly what they're doing. It's an expertise on the human body, just like there is for a car mechanic. But for the car mechanic, as well as for the surgeon, there are so many discernments and calculations and considerations and prior knowledge and perspective that goes into what they're doing in that moment, that you're just missing. You're just missing because you don't have that training. So you don't have that developed perception of what is going on. And that's very similar to looking at life as an ordinary human being, just going through our day, like you said, going through the motions, doing this, doing that. I had a project, fought with my wife, gotta walk the dog, gotta eat something. I'm falling asleep. That's my day. And for a Kabbalist who explores human nature and our relationship with the force that constantly governs our actions, thoughts, and behaviors, there is a very intricate, multifaceted, detailed relationship that's happening in every little thing.
Hold on one
That,
sec. Chris, I
yeah.
had sent you a picture of during the week of this spider thing. Do you have that? Can you pull that up? I think
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone take a look at this. This is a spider. This is an electron microscope of a spider's silk spigot, right? So we see a
Right.
spider. That's unbelievable, isn't it?
This is a
We see
picture,
a
right?
spider.
It's not an artistic rendition. It's
No,
like
it's
a
it's under a microscope, yeah. So
wow.
we see a spider and we want to like
Phenomenal.
squash it, or we see it,
Yeah.
yeah, unbelievable. We see a spider web. It's like, oh, it's a spider web. But if you look, if you understand what it is, if you zoom in, there's so many operations and processes, intricate processes, and it's just like our day. Our day's like spider web
Right.
squash,
Right.
like these big rocks. But no, every single thing going on in our reality. Thanks, Chris. Every
Yeah.
single thing. It's just unbelievable. Everything going on in our reality is so many discernments. You know, you probably remember this. I asked the Kabbalist, our teacher Rav Lightman, in a lesson recently. Um, the Kabbalist is going through thousand discernments in a minute or thousand discernments in a second, and we were describing the discernments like, okay, so the light shines on me. I'm shown that my nature is egoism. I perform an operation on my egoism. I want to correct it towards good. Then the reforming light comes. It corrects this, right? It's like it takes at least 2 seconds to think of all that, to process, because everything is kind of processed. So how are you doing thousands of those in a second? How are you constantly correcting these revealed pieces of the shattering in a
Right.
second? And his answer was, there's no time and space in spirituality. A second can extend to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
to be as long as it needs to be, because you're living in a totally other realm. Can
Right.
I
And
try something? I
this
just
is
had an
also
idea.
I think this is something that people, yeah, we'll try. Once again, I think it's very relevant to add here that I think um it's been a long time for us, but even people who just start studying the wisdom of Kabbalah, start practicing it somewhat, I think you already get to feel that very kind of weird experience of time, and that's because your focus becomes different. You're starting to focus on other things, and you're starting to relate to other things in how you're going about your day, let's say. And that's why, certain events now have a different context, not just they happened an hour ago and they something will happen in 2 hours, but you're starting to count some inner states. I think that even happens not very consciously, just when you for people who just start studying. And I think that's I just think this is something people can relate to if they're beginner students. Anyway, yeah,
Can,
go
can you
ahead.
boil down just the essence of what you said there again? The,
Yes,
the,
the focus, whether you focus on what you're doing versus focusing on your intention or your relationship with the force that governs you that you want to discover, that shift of focus creates a different context of time, space, and motion. That's the whole thing. The shift into the spiritual world. People who try all kinds of methods and they think they want to, they want to try spiritual things. A lot of the times they think about all kinds of other dimensions and hallucinations and very cool aliens and demons and spirits. But you know there is the spiritual world. It's right here, just like you don't see without a microscope all of that life and levels and layers and resolution and detail in those, what was it that you showed, hair, spider web, like in
Spiderweb.
the spider web, right? Just like we don't see it, the spiritual world without a microscope, the spiritual world is right here and it's happening with you and in relationship with you through everything that you're going through right now. You just don't have the glasses. You don't have the microscope. You
Let me
don't
let
have,
me this
yeah.
this is an experiment, and it's something we never did on the show, but I just want to try something. Tell me if you can see. Do you see a whiteboard now? Do you see my whole
Mm-hmm.
screen or just a whiteboard?
I see the whiteboard. Yeah.
Just the whiteboard?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
already
you're
feel
going
that
to
you're
do
like
some
nervous
sketching?
and you're
No,
one
no, no. Go
you,
ahead. Let's.
you're nervous and you're wondering what the hell I'm about to do, but um,
No, no. I'm
but
interested.
just want to okay, so check this out. Just based
Okay.
on what we just said, for a Kabbalist, okay, you have a letter. Let's see if we can make that thicker. Thank you everyone for your patience. So this is the first letter, okay? So you
All
have
right.
this piece right here, which is connecting to heaven, so we call it, and this piece right here, which is connecting to earth, right? We have a
Yeah, it's
lot this
Bina and
in this
Malchut
one,
basically.
right?
The
Okay,
letter
maybe you
Aleph.
can explain as we're going. So this is this letter. So as we're talking about reality or something, and to someone else, it's just a big block. It's just a letter called Aleph. Okay, but to someone who's studying this, there's tons of information. Like a surgeon, we're not just cracking open the chest and just
Mm-hmm.
tying up some things inside. This also is number one. It has a numerical value, and also if you spell out the word, I really appreciate. I feel like I'm nervous now in front of you, and I appreciate your patience. But if you
No, no,
spell
no,
out the
no.
what I'm
It's all
trying to
good.
show,
Yeah.
okay, what I'm trying to show here is that this is a numerical value of 1, this is a numerical value of 30, this is a
Right.
numerical value of 80. So together, the value is 30 is 111, right? So all of this information, and additionally, for example,
Mm-hmm.
this is the name of the creator, El, and this is pe. The word pe, what does pe mean in Hebrew?
Yeah.
Mouth. So that's like
Yeah.
mouth,
And it's also the
you
place
know.
where in the spiritual Partsuf, where the zivug, where the oh my God, I'm starting to talk
No,
language
it's great. It's great. It's
that
great.
technical
So
language that people don't understand.
this is
Um,
called
yeah.
this letter right here is called Aleph. Okay, this first letter right here. So this is A, and of course we go this way in Hebrew. So this is Aleph. Aleph. So basically, all of this information and more, much, much more, is contained in one letter.
Right.
So the
And
same
and
way
all
that
those letters, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, they all come from the basically the highest degree
it's
from
cl-
from
talk
the
to me about
world
the
of
clothing
Atzilut.
now. How
Le-
that's
Okay, oh, I see what you're saying. So when the created being manages to wear the right kind of clothing, again, God forbid, don't get confused with your shirt or your jeans, right? It doesn't matter at all what you wear on your body when it comes to your relationship with the spiritual force. So the clothing we're talking about is an intention that you wear over your desire. Our desires are desires to receive pleasure. That's what we're made of. That's all of our desires are different aspects and different flavors in which we want to feel fulfilled. And over each of these desires, and a Kabbalist discovers that they don't just have a desire to eat something and go to sleep and have a family. They feel 613 layers of their desire, divided to 248 and 365, and so all of these desires need to wear a clothing in order to be in a relationship with the light that wants to fulfill them. And so when
almost like if you're
yeah,
going into a business meeting, you don't dress like a clown, like literally
yeah,
with a wig and a red nose.
yeah,
You dress in order to receive the certain thing in that meeting, for example.
in our world there's all of the manifestations of it that you can think of. Essentially anything that we do with each other, anything that human beings do with each other is building these relationships that are rooted in our need to relate to the upper force, to the force that created us. That's what's happening here in our world. We are unconsciously operated by
What
this
I want to
need
get
for
to,
clothing. Yeah.
what I want to get to is that that light needs to clothe in us, and when we're begin this process, everything is like these big rocks. I get up, I brush my teeth, I have my coffee, I go to the office, or whatever happens during the day. Then I have like my evening, these big kind of rocks. Or if we're just learning the alphabet, the olive, is Aleph, it's just that. But when we zoom into the spider web, we see there's all these spigots and they each one do a certain thing. When we zoom in, like the surgeon, if you ask the
Mm-hmm.
layperson about doing heart surgery, yeah, he saw, he brought him on the table, he opened his chest, he went and sewed something up and then closed him back up.
Right.
The surgeon has a million discernments, and the Kabbalist also, when the light needs to clothe in this world, he's making or she's making thousands of these discernments and corrections and clothing upon the
Right.
light. You called it earlier the
Now,
returning light.
now let's go full circle and uh, um, talk about how a Kabbalist feels what's happening now with nature and the climate and all of those
Oh,
crazy heat waves and wildfires and floods and viruses that are happening right now. All of it is a relationship that we have with nature, with the force that governs all of nature. It's a certain clothing that appears to us so that we will adjust our clothing so that we can rise to a different kind of relationship. So the kind of relationship that we have with nature right now, it's like nature is making an angry face at us. It's almost like how,
mm.
parents are trying,
You're in a business meeting with the creator, or you're on a date is better.
or you're on a
You
date,
are
or
trying.
parents and
You want
children,
to
the you're looking at your kid and you're trying to show them that something's wrong.
no,
And
but let's say we want to be married to the most beautiful, the most rich, the most perfect, the creator. Let's say this force, this endless force. We want to
right,
be in a union. We're going on a date. We're trying to. We want to have
impress.
a,
Yeah.
a yeah. We want to be together
Mm-hmm.
with the creator. So there's some kind of clothing. We need to. How do we dress for that meeting?
Right.
For that date?
So we need to, the clothing ultimately is for us. It's because we don't want to feel opposite to the force that created us. That's why, in the first place, it was concealed from us until we develop the right kind of clothing on our part, concealing ourselves so that we can reveal Him. So, the kind of clothing that we need, and this is what's called in Kabbalah the reflected light, is an intention to bestow upon that force that wants to bestow to us. That is now that's a very high, that is the final level of conscious correction of all of humanity, what I just said in a sentence. For now, we at least need to begin paying attention to what nature wants from us. Just taking into account that, you know what, if there's so much intricacy even in the that spider web and in everything in nature, if there are so many levels and details and elements working harmoniously together to create everything in nature, we have to understand that everything that's happening with us, our activities, our thoughts, our desires, our relationships between us and the natural system, that too has a lot of meaning. And we need to start exploring that as that conscious level of creation called humanity. We have to start thinking about what nature wants from us. That is step one to start moving towards wearing the right kind of clothing for the date with nature's higher
Yeah,
force.
you're going on a date with nature, with the creator, with the force of love in the universe, right? And you
Yeah.
show up and you're like, I want to take you to bed right now. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you're gonna need to
Yeah.
put a
Not
little
gonna
more
work.
effort. You're gonna need to
Hmm.
figure out, how am I going to, what does he want? How, in what way? What do I do? How do I make myself suitable here?
And also, and all of this is just for us. This is the thing. The creator or nature doesn't need, you know, the doesn't need our attitude. It's unconditional, it's complete bestowal. There's no lack there
but it can't dress in
besides
us.
giving, besides bestowing. Yes. The only thing it wants is to fulfill, to become revealed in you, to become, to appear, to manifest in the kli, the vessel that it has created. But it can't do it forcefully. The vessel has to prepare the right clothing to accept that light. The reason we need a clothing is because at the beginning point of creation, that direct contact with the light broke the vessel, meaning that we couldn't bear it. The dissonance between our nature of reception and the creator's nature of giving was so great that it was infinitely great that it created something called spiritual shame, which led to the later on the shattering and all of that, and the restriction before that, and all the whole process that the great Kabbalist the Ari writes about in 2,000 pages of the study of the 10 Sfirot. Seeing all those details of reality that, you know, we just have no idea that they even exist. Anyway, so it's hot.
What did we learn
It's hot
today?
on planet Earth. Wear less clothes, maybe.
It not only is the fire burning up the forest, but the fire in our heart is raging towards this. We can't relax. We can't settle down. We need to know what is going on here, what's going on in life, what we can do, how can we be engaged. The heat wave is not just the sun pressing down on us. The heat is this light pressing down on us, and we need to find out how can we clothe this correctly, the water, all of these things. We need to understand how we can. And by the way, if we all end up in another lockdown, we might even see nature calm down a bit once we stop going out and exploiting and start thinking about these things and thinking about ourselves and thinking about our place in the world and thinking about how we want to be in the world, and stop going out and just making more waste, right? 1/3 or 2 of all the food is going to waste. 50% of all the clothing is going to waste. And all the fossil fuels, everything that we're wasting. If we just stop and think and figure out how we need to clothe ourselves in this world, we'll probably see everything start to calm down. We're on the precipice of something real big, everybody. Thank you for being together with us. Thanks, Chris in Texas. Next show, you'll be back in Israel. Thanks, Asaf from the Middle East, from Israel, my great friend. Thank you, everybody, for being with us from all around the world. We will see you soon. And I saw somebody put the link for the Kabu retreat. If you're in Kabu and want to come to an amazing 3 days of music and campfires and games and, of course, lessons with all the Kabu instructors, that'll be October 1, 2, 3 at some camp in the Poconos. We'll have a good time together. There we go. See everyone.
Masked up, gotta block the call. Masking up my heart from egoistic thoughts. Learning all the lessons that this pressure gave us. Wanna save myself, I gotta save my neighbors. Slowly recognizing egoistic nature. Showing us connection is the only savior. We gon' come together, plow these fields of hatred. All is one with sowing seeds of love relations.
You shatter these walls, unsettle this heart from the chains of time. Then we soar through oceans in the sky. Oh, through your cold, to be in love with you, watch you with a bird's eye. See the world is built with you.
I need to feel that is blessed. When it comes
unity from all the things that separate us. Everything is only for the good, it's all to change us. Yeah, so with tears and we reaping joy. Ego is the evil seeking to destroy. Education covering the hate with love. Revelation blessings waiting from above.